Hello, I'm Peter and I'm here to help. Is that too political for some people? Sorry. Don't know what got into me. Look, I'd just like to express my gratitude to COTA for taking a risk and letting me have a microphone and the pleasure of your ears. I love it, and thank you very much. And I just think it's so important. Across Australia, different agencies, palliative care sometimes, not palliative care in other spaces, have been advising, encouraging, looking for ways to have these discussions, these very, very important discussions. We have to as a community. Those who want to, I don't believe it's mandatory, but those who want to need to have an opportunity, find places where they can raise issues that are of concern, get information that they think will help them, and use that information and awareness to then make decisions that are right for them. So that's what we need, and I'm fully here to encourage and advise and be part of this, and I thank you so much. I'm not very good. Look, PowerPoint, it's so restrictive, and since I've done it, I have a feeling that I don't like what I've got here, so I may just divert from it. But I thought you might like this. I found this just recently in another context, and I thought I'd share it. I think we can all possibly relate to it, except we've decided that we are going to talk about death and dying, and here we are now. But for most of out there, this is probably what it is, and in particularly the bottom bit. Too late. All right, moving on. I sort of said I was going to talk about what palliative care is and what palliative care is not, and why it matters. But I need to probably at the front end just say a couple of broad comments. Palliative care is interested in advocating around better quality in end-of-life care. We know there are some differences of opinion about how we might achieve that, and that's fine. Viva la difference. But we want to say that we have certain views around, I certainly acknowledge that the healthcare system does not do dying well. However, I must just make a comment about this intensive care thing. In my health region, I'd say my numbers show that less than 10% of people die in ICU. So it isn't the common place to die, even in our hospitals, where I come from. But I just want to say that palliative care is not here to say this is our turf, we own it, you need to do what we say. We're not interested in that. What we are interested in, as health professionals and as a body of people committed to the goals of palliative care, is we want to know that the people who would like access to palliative care have access to palliative care. And we want that palliative care to be best quality, and we want that palliative care to be delivering what that person needs at that time. I have to say you can't do it in New South Wales with guarantee at this stage, and you'll see that in a moment. Our origins. I just want to point, palliative care as a movement, a modern palliative care movement. I mean, hospices have been around for centuries, but a palliative care movement is a post-World War II thing. Dame Cecily Saunders from the UK is very much seen to be the beginning point for the modern palliative care movement, hospice and palliative care movement. But these words, I think, capture the essence of what palliative care sought to be from the very beginning. And it's this valuing of the individual. You matter because you are you. You matter to the last moment of your life, and that in this context is palliative care, but frankly it should be all of the healthcare system, and frankly it should be all of society, all of our community. We will do all we can, not only to help you die peacefully, but also to live until you die. This has been an essence of palliative care from the beginning. Definitions, I'm not sure that you're really interested in that. The goal is about improving quality of life, providing a support system to those by them. Let me also just make the note, and perhaps COTA might want to have a look at this. Palliative care has always seen that the whole process of what supporting people around end-of-life care involves includes bereavement care. And it's often, we often feel that palliative care is well neglected. Well, I think our bereavement colleagues, who are often part of us, feel they're the neglected part of palliative care. Bereavement is very important, unrecognised, underthought of part of healthcare. And for every death, there are those who have lost, who are left behind, and it matters a lot. Palliative care neither hastens nor prolongs death. Palliative care neither hastens nor prolongs death. Good palliative care, clinically appropriate palliative care, neither hastens nor prolongs death. I am so frustrated with people who say, oh, we'll give you good palliative care. Up goes the drugs. That's good palliative care. The hell it's good palliative care. But you're not listening. That's not what the palliative care people are saying. They're not saying that's a good thing to do. They're saying there is a better way to do this. There is a clinically appropriate way to do this. A lot of people tell palliative care what their job is, and a lot of people like to think they know how to do palliative care. And the community hears those messages. It ain't true. Listen to the palliative care people if you want to know what good palliative care clinically looks like. Don't listen to these other voices telling you what palliative care is and isn't. Palliative care has been proven to improve quality of life and death, and Ken, thank you for mentioning that. Timely and appropriate access to palliative care can make a real connection. Let me also say that palliative care doesn't work for everybody. I want to acknowledge that. When I started in palliative care, and I've been in and out of it mostly in it, for nearly 30 years. So I am a death walker, I suppose. A death worker, a death walker. I believed, as a really young nurse, that palliative care, 100% of pain, 100% of symptoms, 100% of the time. It was a disappointment to me when I started to find in my journey some people that didn't quite work. We couldn't quite get there. So I want to acknowledge that palliative care doesn't always get there. I want to tell you, though, that when it's given an opportunity, palliative care brings a lot of symptom management and a lot of comfort to a hell of a lot of people. There are two types of palliative care. I'll just mention that briefly because this speaks to my earlier point. Specialist palliative care are the people who work full-time in palliative care. But there's no reason why your GP shouldn't be able to do good, I like to call it palliative care 101, I hope no GPs take offence at that, but they should be able to do that appropriate pain management at that early stage. Oncologists should be able to do that. Respiratory physicians should be able to manage retractable dyspnea. It should be part of what we do as a healthcare system. And when what they do doesn't work, specialist palliative care should be there to go in and say, well, actually, we've got a couple of other ideas here, we might try that. But we need that to be in place for it to happen. We're not quite the same as end-of-life care. We love the image in the service that I work for. We love the image that we often say that our uniform should simply be the Grim Reaper outfit. Because when we introduce ourselves to someone who's been referred to us and we have the conversation, they assume that because palliative care has been referred to, they're imminently about to die. And then there are another group that think we're imminently about there to make that happen as well. Small group, that's them. And that's not the case. It's been shown to be, in some systems, palliative care should be part of the early stages of treatment. Sometimes palliative care can be connected for a couple of years, sometimes only a couple of days. I'm not sure what's right in this. When I first started in my particular place at work at the moment, 17 years ago, the average length of time that someone was connected to us was 6 months or more. It's now 3 months or less. Because that's, as Ken did also make the comment, palliative care only goes where it's invited to go. We are normally referred to, and we can't control the timing of those things. Palliative care is not understood by many people. And palliative care is not the opposite of euthanasia. Another thing that, you don't need to know about my frustrations, do you? But why is it the only time the media want to come and talk about quality end-of-life care, well, kind of, sort of not, is when there's euthanasia debate on? And when there's not a euthanasia debate on, they don't want to talk to us. They don't want to print my letters to the Herald or my opinion pieces. Oh, sorry, I sound like a loser. Let me draw your attention. Some of you may recall this from a number of weeks ago. Dear Mum, I'm sorry I didn't kill you. Tracy Spices' story. Now, when I arrived at work that morning, several of my colleagues had read this, and we were basically shaking our heads when we read the story. Before I got to work, I wrote the letter to the Herald that said, there are two tragedies in this story. One is what happened, what the experience of Tracy and her mother and the family was. Absolute tragedy. But the second tragedy was, I don't see good symptom management happening there. I wonder if there was an opportunity given for palliative care to play a major role in that. I don't know, but clearly I don't think there was very effective stuff going on there. Herald didn't publish that, of course not. Moving on. Specialist palliative care, as I said, is not needed by everybody. But what's important is people, as they approach end-of-life care, should have access to the right care delivered in the right place by the right people in their situation. That's what we need. That's what we want. That's what we want as the normal, as the default, as an option. Specialist palliative care is not the whole picture. Let me say very clearly, dying is a social process, and a range of supportive care and informal networks contribute to good dying. Specialist palliative care can sometimes be pigeonholed to be about the drugs. We're not about the drugs. We shouldn't be about the drugs. We do drugs good. See me later. But it's not about the drugs. It should be about a support system. It should be about... Palliative care have always taken a holistic view. Palliative care have always said it's not about your physical symptoms only, it's also about your social and psychological issues. Palliative care has always said that it's about the people around you that matter. It's not just about you alone. We spend often more of our time working with carers, family members, than we actually do with the person themselves who is dying. So it's a broad picture, but we can't be there. And people die well when they have networks. People die well when they have other people contributing. That's what will help us get more people to die at home, if that's the goal. Watching the time, yes. Why does palliative care matter? Well, I hold this view, and of course I would, wouldn't I? The role that specialist palliative care plays is foundational to safe, quality symptom management, support and end-of-life care. We're the people who say dying happens and it's normal. We're the ones who say, you don't have to have that pain. There are things we can do to address that. You don't have to have that intractable nausea. You don't have to have that dyspnea. Let's see if we can help manage it. You don't have to have that fear. Let's explore that fear. We don't have to be in every dying situation. In my own place of work, we are in roughly 1/4. We are connected to 1/4 of all deaths that happen in my location up on the Central Coast. So we don't have to be there. I think there's probably about an equal number of places where we probably should be and no one asks us to go. But there are many places that people don't need our expertise. That's okay. That absolutely is okay. But when it isn't working without palliative care, people don't have anywhere else to come in and help. So we need to have a good foundation. And in our hospitals, where they do dying so badly for many of the reasons Ken mentioned, palliative care operates as a safety net for quality dying in our acute hospital system, if they are given the opportunity to, and if they are there to. Here's the New South Wales gap. Respectfully, parliamentarians. And let me say this in the context of, we have a current Minister of Health who genuinely values palliative care. I know that. I believe that. However, we have never fully assembled an adequate level of specialist palliative care services across the state of New South Wales. We simply have not. There have been plans, never fulfilled. I don't point the bone at any particular governmental party. New South Wales currently has 0.4 palliative care doctors per 100,000 population. The national average is 0.8. That's the average. That's not necessarily saying that's what the best is, that's the average. To become to the average, we need another 30 palliative care doctors today. There are not 30 positions funded for those people. We can argue about whether they're there, but we need to think ahead and train and get them in there. But we need investment, we need vision to achieve that. The Minister in the budget announced 30 more palliative care nurses for New South Wales, and I appreciate that. Thankful for that. However, we have a shortage of 220 palliative care nurses in New South Wales compared to the Australian average. You can do the math. Last slide. Not quite though. I've got two more after it. Fooled you. Regretfully, New South Wales citizens do not yet have an acceptable nor equitable level of access to palliative care services. This is the only comment I'll make about this space. If we ever want to have a discussion about choice, and I know that word can be code for a whole host of things, or open another discussion. If we ever want to have a discussion about choice, all I say is let us have option 1 adequately in place, and then we can meaningfully talk about, well, it doesn't mean we can't talk about other options. But if we're going to have choice, let's have a good default position first. We don't have that. Until this resource gap is addressed, then this variation will occur as to who can get access to palliative care, when they can get access to palliative care, what palliative care access there'll be. Yes, I heard the cough. 2 things I just want to make you aware of, because what is here today, this discussion is a great opportunity and a superb start. There are other things happening. Death Cafe. Now, there are 2 words you don't normally see next to each other. But Death Cafe is a movement that started in the UK, has been examples in the USA, and we have had 3 in Australia, of which 2 have been in New South Wales, 1 on the Central Coast. And Death Cafe is simply an opportunity for people to come and create a safe place where people can just talk about death and dying. Because they get held down when they try to do it elsewhere. So that's one thing. And then something else I just want you to be aware of, that I only recently became aware of. Dying to Know Day is on the 8th of August 2013. Dying to Know Day. Encourage all Australians to develop new knowledge and attitudes about how to deal with death and bereavement and support each other at the end of life. Another initiative. It's not from palliative care, it's from another group, and that's great. That's great. So I thank you very much for your time, and I thank you very much for the opportunity, and please have a good discussion.